You're listening to Menopause Natural Solutions, episode 55, my interview with Lynette Sheppard from the Menopause Goddess blog. Welcome to Menopause Natural Solutions, your podcast for all things perimenopause and menopause related. Stay tuned as naturopath Jennifer Harrington explains how to use natural therapies to transform your health and happiness. Hello there. Have you heard of the Menopause Goddess blog? It's something that you possibly have because it was voted 2020's best menopause blog. But as you hear me talk to Lynette today, you'll find out this is not the first time this has happened. Today I'm going to have a discussion with Lynette Sheppard. She is also the author of Becoming a Menopause Goddess, a chronicle of women's wisdom for weathering the change. You'll find her full of hints and tips, but also quite humorous in her approach to the change. One thing that I love most about the conversation that I had with Lynette is that she has been there and done that. That menopause really is in her rearview mirror. Where for me, I'm in the thick of it, and potentially if you're listening, you're in the thick of it as well. So it's nice to know that we can make it. We can get out the other end there, and that there is things to look forward to. There's actually benefits of going through this change. So anyway, enough about me. Let's jump over to our conversation. So Lynette, welcome to Menopause Natural Solutions.
Thank you, Jennifer. I'm so happy to be here and to share with your listeners everything I know, however much it is, about menopause.
Well, look, you are the perfect guest for us. Ladies, if you haven't heard of Lynette and the Menopause Goddess, you so need to go and check it out. Not only has her site won the best menopause blog of 2020, this is not the first time she has won this award. Lynette, how many times have you been voted the best menopause blog?
I have to confess I've lost count, not to be immodest. I think it's 6 years, but I'm not totally positive because I usually get rid of the old badges. And yes, I don't remember, but quite a few years they've honored me, which is really nice.
That is, well, see, women, you need to go and check it out if you haven't, because it's not just me that loves Lynette's work. It's many, many women in order to have won that award for so many years. So, Lynette, how did it all get started?
Well, it got started because menopause sort of slammed into me like a semi-truck, and I did not know what was happening. And I'm a registered nurse, so I thought, oh, menopause will be, I'll probably feel warm a little bit. I might gracefully fan myself occasionally, and really that was my expectation, that it would be no big deal because I ate healthy, I exercised, I felt like I should breeze through this. Needless to say, I did not breeze through it. I was hot and cranky and completely out of sorts. My brain didn't work, my hair was falling out, you name it, it was happening. So I called a girlfriend of mine, and she was going through the exact same thing. And I asked her, I said, is there something terribly wrong with us? Or could this be what menopause is about? And at that time, there was not a huge amount of information accessible on the web. So we decided to invite about 15 women from across the country to join us for a slumber party with a focus. And the focus being, are you going through menopause? And hey, what's that like for you? So we invited all these women. Not everybody knew one another, but everybody knew someone. And we thought, oh, well, we've got icebreakers to get them comfortable with each other, and we'll get it going. And we didn't need them at all. 5 minutes after everyone arrived, we were just in full download mode. Is this happening to you? Is that happening to you? What are you doing? It was so gratifying to find out that we were not alone. And that was the beginning of the Menopause Goddess group and ultimately the Menopause Goddess blog.
Just the power of connection. It seems to unfortunately be a lost part of society these days, but just the power of getting together with your girlfriends.
Right, unless you get together, for a drinks and a after office complaining session, which is very therapeutic, mind you. I have nothing against that, but we feel like we have so little time, and yet during menopause, I think the most important thing we can do is connect with one another. All 15 of us say that we might not have made it through the pause without one another, and we certainly would not have thrived. We were ultimately support for one another. We cried together, laughed together, and basically reaffirmed life and what it can be going forward for the second half.
So Lynette, I'm 75% through your book. I was hoping to get it finished by today, but life threw a spanner in the works. So the book, Becoming a Menopause Goddess, a chronicle of women's wisdom for weathering the change. And I have to say, it's quite entertaining. I love the little stories like chasing the bear out of the house, and little bits and pieces that come up over your. That was 4 years, I think the book was, over the 4-year span of the meetings.
Correct. The book covers 4 years of our collective wisdom. And, there's so much more, of course, on the blog. A lot of what's in the book never made it to the blog since the blog took on a life of its own, which is a good thing, I think. But I think that the book, one of the things that we had noticed about the books that were available to us then, it's not so much now, but so many of them were very dry medical descriptions with long words about what's happening and not a lot about what it feels like, the emotional components. Whereas when the women got together, there were no holds barred. We just said whatever came up, and we were completely honest with one another. And we committed to support one another, but also to have honest truth telling of what we saw, just to help one another through.
Yeah. And now that you are through and menopause really is in your rearview mirror, what would you say have been some of the biggest benefits? Like what were some of the surprises out the other end?
Oh, that's such a great question, Jennifer. One of the surprises, I think, I was just interviewed the other day, and I was saying, I feel sorry for men. Even though menopause is a horror show when it first hits, it turns into a coming of age story. We are so disrupted, if you will, by the change, that we take stock of everything. We look at our entire lives. Where do we want to go from here? What's our vision for the second half of life? And what do we want to do with ourselves? Because I think second childhood, that term, gets a really bad rap. I think that the best things about childhood are that sort of freedom to experience things, to do something just because we want to, not worry about being made a fool of or those kinds of things. Not being an adult saying, well, I feel like dancing hula, so I'm going to do it even if I'm not good at it, or I feel like drawing and painting. And I think that the biggest benefit is that we reconnect with ourselves. I think that's the relationship that we rediscover. And, I was talking to a doctor friend of mine. I said, sometimes it feels like our entire DNA has changed. And I was slightly tongue-in-cheek about that. If you read my book, there's a fair amount of humor that the Menopause Goddesses indulge in.
And that's what makes it so readable. It's not dry. It's not full of words that you have to look up as you're going through it. It's just a fun story.
Yeah, because when women get together, they don't censor themselves quite as much. So I really wanted to make it seem like everybody got to come into our little slumber party, if you will. But the doctor I was talking to, she's a menopausal woman herself, and she said, "Oh no, I absolutely believe that our DNA, our very DNA, changes." Yeah. And I said, "Okay, that's really quite wonderful that you, as a physician, would think that."
Okay, so with the slumber parties, do you still do them?
It's so funny because we did them for about 15 years. And then after that, we were all looking at, well, we've come such a long ways. And we were so happy with our lives and what we moved into. Then we went ahead and we ended up going on some trips together, actually, not all 15 of us, but those that could go, 6 or 8 at a time. And the most recent one was to Croatia. And just, rediscovering things and discovering new things. And it just being together was such a joy. And weirdly enough that you asked that question, just today, this morning, I went, oh, you know what? With all this new technology and the Zoom world,
Yeah.
I think that I'll have all the gals get together for a sort of virtual cocktail party and see if we can do that. So I will let you know how that goes, but I think it will be a delight.
Oh, I'm sure it will be. And it's great that this is really what you've created is lifetime friendships.
Oh, deep and important ones. And we know that we can always call upon one another whenever we need to or feel the need to. And we certainly stay in touch via email and applaud one another, because I have to say every single person has had their lives turn out to be pretty much what they wanted them to be. And it didn't start out that way, I can guarantee you. But each of us giving the others the permission.
It is. That is really so wonderful to hear. That it all turns out okay in the end. Well, better than okay by the sounds of it.
Yes, I think that one of the things is that we are women, and we can take a lot if someone tells us that, hey, it's awful, but it's temporary, and you will get through this, and also it's normal. So if we know those things out front, then we're like, okay, we're ready. We'll take it on, and we'll find out what we need to do to what natural remedies support us, what diet supports us, and exercise. And I will say this, in the very beginning, that was some of us the last thing we wanted to hear. So because you're just so devastated. Yeah. So what we did is we thought, okay, one thing at a time. Let's just address for the next month or so our diet. Let's not worry about the other stuff. Let's just start there. And taking small bits, before we knew it, we were just thriving and growing, and the healthy lifestyle was actually the most enjoyable lifestyle, if you will.
Well, it's the one that leaves you with the most energy and the most vibrance. So it all makes sense. So it really sounds to me like the number one thing you would say that will help you survive and maybe even thrive in menopause is connection.
Absolutely. Every one of us said that was our number one remedy, if you want to call it a remedy, that it was absolutely critical. And it's so easy to start your own group. In fact, if people go to the blog and put creating your own menopause group in the search box, it will bring up the how-to. The how-to is also in the book, but you can bring up the how-to. We tell you how to do it. It is not a huge effort. And in these times, in our coronavirus times, with the advent of Zoom, GoToMeeting, Skype, that we can all join together. I just recently attended a virtual baby shower with people from all over the U.S., and it was delightful. and it felt like we were all together. It's hard to explain. I know some people think, oh, technology, but honestly, it was beautiful. So I am expecting to set up that cocktail party. I'm actually going to send an
good.
email out as soon as we are finished here.
Great. So I guess one of the benefits of going through menopause now versus when you went through is also the amount of groups that are already happening. Like I have one, and I know of many other practitioners that also have them, and my door opens next in August. So if anyone's listening and you're interested, then that's something to consider. And I also run retreats, although not in 2020 because of coronavirus.
Right.
But I used to live in Thailand, and I used to live at a health retreat, and just seeing the power of not only getting women together, but getting women out of their home environment. When you're
Oh,
not
absolutely.
necessarily worried about the laundry, the cooking, the cleaning, you're just worried about connection and yourself and being there. That I find really powerful.
It's incredibly powerful. And I live in Hawaii next door to a retreat center. And there's certainly those kinds of retreats being hosted actually by a woman from Canada, from Toronto, or I'm sorry, Ottawa. And so she would have week-long retreats that sound much like yours, and I would teach hula as the movement portion of the retreat. And just these women stay so connected once they've had this time together. It's just a deep and profound connection. So I think anytime someone can be part of these groups, and you might say, oh, I don't do groups. That was usually my go-to position. No, in this time of life, we all do groups. We all do one another. I can't even express enough, even if you don't do groups, how important this will be.
Thank you. Now, I love that you mentioned hula, because dance is something that you and I have in common. So how do you feel that dancing has helped you transition through menopause?
Yes, well, first of all, hula is, I think, one of the best low impact aerobic exercises you can do. But it has so many benefits because you're learning another language. I mean, obviously, hula songs are in Hawaiian, so you have to be able to sort of translate in your head. And honestly, learning language is one of those brain exercises that is so helpful to us, even in the midst of the brain fog, or maybe especially in the midst of the brain fog. So you're not only being fit, and balance. Oh my goodness, hula, because you bend your knees and you're so connected to the ground when you dance, is wonderful for balance. So you're preventing osteoporosis, you're getting your aerobic workout, you're improving your balance, because as women get older, falls are something they have to think about. And all of those things, plus it's so joyful and so much fun that it doesn't seem like you're exercising at all. So things like that, I know friends who belly dance or ballroom dance. One friend is a ballroom dancer now. She'd never done any dancing her entire life. These are things that nurture us and feed us. Anything that we can do artistically, anything we want to try, it doesn't matter. We don't have to worry about making a fool of ourselves anymore. We can just go out there, and it's freeing, and it's like, oh, it really is the second half of life. We have started on a new path, and how wonderful is that?
And something else we're doing salsa dancing. It's something I do with my partner, but we haven't been able to do it since February due to coronavirus. But obviously, yes, we can do it at home, but we're still taking classes and learning. Hula is something you can do on your own. You don't need to worry about having somebody else. You can just do it on your own. You can do it in front of Zoom. You don't need anyone. You just enjoy.
Yeah, even though when you're with your the people you learn with, those are your hula sisters. They become another group, if you will, that are your sisters. Well, there are also one of my hula teachers is now doing Zoom classes once a month, which is so wonderful because we get to learn something new. You see all of your hula sisters online. It's delightful. There are so many wonderful opportunities open to us. And I think there might even be some beginning hula stuff on YouTube that if somebody wanted to check it out, nobody's going to say anything. There's nobody watching you, right?
Exactly.
So how delightful is that? Yes, I think anything like that. I mean, I took up all kinds of artistic things. Some worked, some didn't. I think I did a painting collage class and learned, well, I'm not really a painter, but boy, was that a lot of fun. And I think those are the kinds of things we can just let ourselves be free with.
But often you have to experiment to find out. We've spent so much of our life looking after everybody else, and it's who am I? So it is about taking those classes and trying new things and trying different things to discover, oh, actually, I really like this. And that's not me. I'm glad I tried it, but I'm moving on. Next thing. So, yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that.
Exactly. I mean, I have a beautiful ukulele because I live in Hawaii. And unfortunately, that just really didn't take for me. And my poor ukulele teacher would look at me and I'd go, I'm hurting you, aren't I? And he'd go, no, but maybe we should try some hula songs. Or but you can have the freedom to go, okay, I want to try this just because I want to. And because I want to is a terrific reason. So I think just to even give ourselves the potential of learning and doing and being someone new, because in a sense we are a new person. We come out of this totally changed, and that's a really wonderful thing.
And something that you mentioned at the beginning is that when you started your slumber party with a focus, some people knew some people, but not everybody knew everyone. So if there's something you want to try and you don't know anyone in the group or you don't know anyone in the class, that's an even better reason to go and do it, because now you've just created a new social circle.
Absolutely. And we found quite by accident, because it was accidental that not everybody knew everybody, we actually found, I'm not saying that you should, go and desperately try to root up people that don't know one another. But we found that oftentimes people have a group role when they have just their friends, like somebody's the protector and somebody's the mediator. Well, in this instance, no one had a role. And that's what one of the participants said. She goes, in my group of friends, I am the peacemaker. And here I don't have to do that. I can actually be free and say, well, who am I without that role? And I think that's a really an important learning for us. Who are we without our roles? And what new roles might we want to take on? What old ones do we want to jettison?
This is so true. A lot of people say I'm a different person at work than I am at home. So you can be different people with different company. So it's a good point.
Absolutely. And to be free enough to go, well, what if I didn't have any of those roles? What if I started? We actually did an exercise, and I think it's in the book, where when we had our week-long slumber party in Hawaii, we did an exercise where you write down all the roles you are, all the things you are, whether it's nurse, mother, sister, artist, all of the things that you are, caretaker. And then we were able to take all of those roles and we put them down and got rid of them sort of symbolically one at a time and felt what that felt like. And then we looked at them and took back most of them, but we didn't take back the ones that didn't suit us anymore, that we were just carrying around because we thought we should.
Wow, that what a powerful exercise.
It was very powerful. There were tears, as you can imagine, and lots of emotion and lots of discovery.
And letting go.
and letting go. And and when you let go of something, I mean, it's a natural process with menopause because we are letting go of something as well. Even though you and I've mostly been talking about how we grow into something better, you still do need to grieve the parts that you're leaving behind. Sort of clean that out and go, okay, it's okay to be sad about what feel like I'm losing. And then I can move on and have the space to develop that relationship with myself and find out who I'm going to be for the second half of my life.
Wow. No wonder you've won the best blog for so many years in a row, Lynette. I just love talking to you. You are full of wisdom. So in your time, what would you say some of the most craziest, maybe rarely spoken about symptoms of menopause that you want women to know this is normal, this is okay, this is part of your journey?
Yes. So I will say that the brain fog usually catches most women by surprise. Like I've had so many women and readers say, do I have dementia? Do I have Alzheimer's? But I can't think anymore. And, obviously we like to make sure we get checked out with our practitioner. But honestly, brain fog is a very common, very disturbing symptom. Rest assured it's temporary, but it's not enjoyable. I will absolutely cotton to that.
Oh, I think we all know what you're talking about. Yes. Where did I put those keys?
Yeah, and they were right here. I have, it's amazing. I had a quick story. I one time was saying to myself, my girlfriend was over, I was like, okay, keys, glasses, comb hair. And she said, do you actually have to do that for yourself? And I was like, believe it or not, yes, because she had not quite started menopause. Well, the next year she called me and she goes, I don't know why. I keep going to Home Depot to try to get orange juice. And I know they don't really have orange juice, but I forget. And so she said, I completely get what you were going through. It's so bizarre. So
it's
definitely
good to know that that's not permanent.
It's not permanent, and it is normal. Anxiety and night terrors, even if you've never been afraid before, are fairly common, and it's terrifying. Hair loss afflicts at least 50% of women, and it's devastating. Our femininity is somewhat tied to our hair, and that just feels terrible. But there are lots of things you can do about it, and it does stabilize, I promise. The weirdest symptom I came across was a thing called burning mouth or burning lip syndrome, which I'd never heard of until a reader wrote me about it. And
I've actually got a previous podcast episode when I talk about the weirdest symptoms of menopause. We talk about all the different nervous system issues. So tingling, burning feet, tingling lips, burning tongue. It's not all that common, but it does show its face time and again for some women.
Well, right. And this poor woman, her doctor wanted to prescribe some very heavy duty drugs off label for it and she was terrified to take them. The side effects were horrendous, but her mouth burned so much it was hard to eat sometimes. So I really went on a search and I finally found that the weird remedy that's natural for that was capsaicin. So you're actually putting something burning on your tongue and lips to stop the burning. Sounds bizarre, but it actually worked.
Sounds homeopathic as well.
Yes, and so it was so useful. These are the kinds of things where I would go, oh my goodness, I've got to go do even more research. And the other one of the things I really want to caution women about is if you have heavy bleeding in your perimenopausal time, don't rush to have surgery. Because they always used to do surgery for that, like a DNC or they do a hysterectomy, that may not be required. It wasn't for me. I bled heavily for a year and a half, but I felt like, what if this is normal? We've not let this be normal before. So I found a really good gynecologist who said, yeah, let's just watch. And, do ultrasounds and check, but as long as everything looks normal. And it turns out that can be a normal variant. It's uncomfortable, and it may complicate your life too much, and you may not wish to go through it. But I personally wanted to keep all of my pieces if I could. And so I was willing to put up with the difficulty, and I switched my diet and ate lots of red meat so I didn't get anemic, and I was fine.
That's really good to hear. The amount of women contacting me saying, I'm about to have a hysterectomy, or I've had a hysterectomy, and now I've got other issues going on because of the surgery. So it's nice to hear this is a true example of somebody that sat with it.
Mm-hmm.
And
I mean, how would we know? How do we know it's normal if we always do, the first thing that comes to mind? And not that it doesn't work, but I can't tell you how many friends of mine and coworkers and employees who don't have a uterus because the minute it got messy, that was the one thing that was recommended.
They didn't know there was an alternative.
No. And so I was happy to sort of be the guinea pig and say, well, what if this is normal? And I'm happy to have found a young, really smart gynecologist who said, yeah, I wonder about that too. Let's try this. Let's check it out.
Well, I really guess it's first do least harm. So what are some of the steps? Instead of going straight to the surgery, you sat and waited. Could you have potentially have maybe found a medical herbalist to try some astringent herbs? There's always another road. There's never one road to the answer. There's multiple
Absolutely.
different solutions, and it's where you start. Don't start at the end, start at the beginning. And if you're still not coping with those heavy bleeds and you want to do a hysterectomy, then at least you've tried other things along the way, and maybe the answer is waiting in one of those other steps. I know some people who've had great success with acupuncture. So there's always different things that you can try first. Well, when I look at how long you've been going through and supporting women, doing your blog post, what's in the future for Menopause Goddess?
Yes, so I do try to find more posts that are about aging gracefully and second childhood or second adulthood is what I call it on the blog. Those, I think if somebody really wants to know things about menopause, if they're just coming on, the search box, if you just put whatever topic you're thinking about, it will bring up all the blog posts over the last 15 years that are about that. So only if there's something new and interesting do I put something else on the blog. It seems like there's something new every week, though, and I'm really gratified by the number of young women that are looking into menopause because their moms are suffering, and I just did a post about a young woman who has created a Kegel exerciser because she talked to her mom, and her mom was a physician who was going through a terrible time. And it just is so gratifying to see young women. These women will be so much more prepared than I was. It's so
that's
gratifying.
Because we're standing on the shoulders of giants, of women like you who have gone before us, who've laid the pathway. So for that, I thank you.
Well, I thank you too for being. I'm just so excited. Yes, I don't know. One time I was ready to give up Menopause Goddess blog. So I thought, well, maybe it's time for me to move in another direction. And so I had two women that came on as my sort of co-administrators, try to get them into it. One of them was from Australia, and she was 70, I was 60. The other woman was 50 from California. And they were both menopause coaches, incidentally. So I thought, oh, this will be great. And I'll be able to turn the blog over to one of them, probably the younger one. And fantastic. Well, the older one, her husband had a heart attack, and she sort of stopped her work appropriately. And then the young one just had to take a full-time job with a holistic clinic. She just wasn't making enough money. And so they had to leave. And I went, well, I may be able to sit with this and rethink this. And so I went, well, it's not hard to keep the blog going. And, so if I just concentrate on new things, on aging gracefully and stuff like that, it is not that difficult to turn women on to other resources such as your podcast
Well,
and
thank you.
And things like, which I greatly enjoy, I must say. I think my favorite one so far is the one about constipation.
Oh.
I mean, it was so full of humor and so wonderful and so straightforward. I was like, that is just fabulous. Can't wait to recommend it because it's so delightful. And I think opening up these conversations is really important. I am definitely doing a lot of other projects right now. I write fiction. I have always been an artist, so I'm still doing a lot of that. So I keep up with the blog for now. Who knows where it goes in the future? But I feel this responsibility to the women who visit the blog. I just feel like I can't bail on them, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, for that, we salute you and we thank you. And thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us today. I've really enjoyed our conversation.
As have I. Thank you, Jennifer. And by the way, if you haven't read Jennifer's book, you need to do that. I actually had a couple readers write me and say, oh my gosh, thank you so much for recommending this book. It's a godsend.
Oh, thank you. I didn't know that, but that is always delightful to hear. Like, it's a book, as you would know, being an author yourself, it feels like a kind of child in a way that you're putting out there in the world, and to hear such wonderful things said about it just fills me with joy.
Oh, that's great.
Well, until we meet again, I'm sure our paths will cross. Keep dancing.
Will do. You do the same, and aloha, everyone, from Hawaii.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Lynette as much as I enjoyed chatting with her. I just wanted to clarify a few points before we finish up today. First is that destination retreats that I run are off for 2020. I really want to make sure coronavirus is over before we get back out there, but I do have an expression of interest form on my website. So if you are interested, please fill that in so I can contact you when they're happening again and you don't miss out. The second is, in August, I'm launching a new program called Menopause Makeover. It is in two formats. One is a do-it-yourself program where it's self-paced, learn in your own time. The other way to do the program is in the group program. It is a 4-month group program, and I do recommend that you do the program this way because that way you also have the value of community and connection that Lynette mentioned was so important for her transition, and hopefully I want you to experience that benefit as well. Well, I hope you're having a fabulous week. I look forward to connecting with you again soon. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to Menopause Natural Solution. This podcast contains general information about menopause. It is provided as a guide and is not intended to replace medical advice. Opinions of guests of their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests.